thought a minister from the French government would make a move to work at the LVMH group after 15 years as a public servant. After a stint with the company, Renaud Dutreil joined Tigre Blanc, the French vodka brand. He shares how developing nations contributed to the success of LVMH to make it one of the best-selling luxury brands in the world.
I'm going to ask you to rewind into the past when you were the Minister for Trade and Industry, and imagine for a moment that you were doing that job for India. How would you shape the evolution of luxury in India? What would you do? Can you tell us?
So I would do something very simple. First, I would try to make an inventory of what the Indian artisans are, and try to select the best ones. You know, the artisans who are not only able to replicate a product, because at the origin, whether it is in France or in India, an artisan is someone who masters very well some skills and is able to do a product very well. He has been an apprentice, he has been, as we say in France, a compagnon, and then he becomes a master artisan. Identify those who have a more creative approach of their profession, who are able to mix creativity and craft. And I would try to connect them with designers, young designers who have been traveling, who are well-traveled, who know what the consumer is in New York, in Paris, in London, in Tokyo, in Shanghai, because that is the meeting, you know, the ability, the dialogue between artisans and well-rounded and traveled designers, which will allow India to create an emerging new phenomenon in terms of style and in terms of luxury. You need both, and that is the way it works in France. You know, when I am crafting my Tigre Blanc, it's with people, you know, they look like artisans of the 19th century. They're working with an old alembic, which comes from their parents and grandparents. That is this part which is so humble, which is so invisible, which is the artisan. But you need also the glamorous part of luxury. You need the designer, you need the marketer, you need the guys who are able to communicate, you need the celebrity. You need this assemblage of modest artisans and visible designers. So I think that it's not a kind of French recipe. It's something which is just human truth. As far as we have artisans and we have designers, we have to create the couple of an artisan plus a designer. And we need a third person, which is a good manager, which is also something very important, because you cannot have a good luxury house without good managers.
My next question relates to your time with LVMH. I'm sure everyone in the room wants to know what is the secret of LVMH's success. Just to remind you, the group's sales in 2012 were a whopping 28 billion euros, which translates, if I've got my math right, to rupees 2 trillion. And it's also made the chairman, Bernard Arnault, the fourth richest man in 2012, although I believe he's dropped a few numbers this year. Now, the thing is, the reason I ask you is that LVMH owes most of its success to consumers from the developing world. You talked about the Japanese discovering them in the 70s, at which point Japan was part of the developing world. And now China is its biggest market by far. So what is the secret of its success, especially with developing markets?
First, when we say developing market, we have the feeling that those markets didn't exist before. Mm-hmm. That's totally wrong. I mean, Cartier has become famous in France because it was the Maharaja jeweler. So we have to be careful about the fact that luxury has always been existing, and in emerging countries, you have always, you know, been able to have very wealthy consumers who appreciated those products and were able not only to buy them, but I would say to co-produce them. which was the case with, between Cartier and the Maharaja. It was not just a guy showing up in a mall, entering into a shop and buying a Cartier jewel. No, he was saying, I would like that you use this stone, because it's a beautiful stone, to make a jewel with it. So it was a dialogue. It was a co-production. So that is something that we always have to keep in mind, because the French luxury industry is a co-production. It's not only French, you know. And in my country, which is a small country, we have only 60 million inhabitants. You know, it's always about dialogue. It's always about creating something in partnership with someone who is totally different from us. That's what I like personally when I commit myself to a brand, is to create something with people from another culture, not with people from my culture. You know, it's boring. I know them. So that is really something which is interesting. Is to create all those different partnerships between Indian talents and external partners, whether they are luxury brands or designers or manufacturers or consumers.
You talked about new money, and at the same time, we talked about artisans and unique products, and whether you want to develop the wild tiger side of you or be the uniform side. What are your views on that? The reality is that logo products, new money, etc., is a very large part of the so-called luxury industry, whether we like it or whatever our opinion about it might be.
So let's look at what happens in emerging countries. You have an increasing number of people who have access to the middle class, and once they are part of the middle class, they want to have access to education in terms of lifestyle. So the luxury brands are, I think, smart enough to bring to them something which is a kind of training session to have access to a sophisticated lifestyle. And you have to go to several steps. And most of the time, the first step is to buy an accessory, because it's something which it's good value for good money. You can use it. It's nice. It tells something about your taste. It is a social marker. It tells a lot about your ability to buy expensive products. So we don't have to despise that. I think it's not the ultimate end of what luxury should be, but it's a transitory phenomenon. And most of the time, you know, people scale up. They go into the brand. They go into the luxury world, and they try to buy different products.
Can Asia ever develop luxury brands? Find out after a short break as an esteemed panel tries to weigh in on the pros and cons.